I know.
Don't want to rub off?
Bruce, it's not good, Bruce. Joe, Bruce got to stop hanging around with you.
I'm telling you,
You're taking him down.
I'm a bad influence.
Exactly.
Some water. It's good.
No, I ain't doing that.
No?
No.
I can't
understand
No.
what you're saying.
You can announce him, but I won't be there. I can't.
If I get one more commissioner, I'll
I
do it.
can't.
You can't.
Too much of a shot.
Commissioner? Yes?
Actually, I have a musical I'm going to see that day.
New York?
Philadelphia.
Okay.
Well, you can recruit while you're here. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the City of Millville work session for February 19, 2019 at approximately 5:34 p.m. Roll call, please.
Mayor Santiago?
Here.
Commissioner Pepitone?
Here.
Vice Mayor Parent? Here. Commissioner Udalvis?
Here.
Commissioner Cooper?
Here.
We all stand and salute the flag, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. Thank you. This meeting is being conducted in accordance with the Open Public Meeting Act of 1975, was advertised, posted, and made available to the public as required by statute. The municipal clerk is directed to include a statement in the minutes of this meeting. We'll go right to presentations.
Sure. Okay, so we have a presentation by Steve Durst of Synergy LLC for a solar project.
Steve, I don't see Steve here.
He's back
Steve, where? Oh,
Just
come on
called you up.
He was hiding. Will you go to the mic over here, sir, please? Just need you to announce your name. You can.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner.
You can have that.
I got a
Thank you.
funny story about that.
My name's Steve Trumbo. I am Steve Durst's partner in Synergy, and was with him the last time that we
Can
were
you speak
here.
a little louder? I'm sorry.
Sure. Was with him the last time that we were here, and everyone agreed at that point in time that we should take a look at what the total usage of electricity the cities was using, so that we could give you a better idea of what we thought we could save you. So that's what we were able to do. We did sign the authorization form that went to Atlantic City for all the meters that you had supplied us, and did receive a response from them. In total, through all the meters for the city alone, not counting street lighting, you're using about 1.5 million kilowatt hours.
Million?
Million.
Billion?
Million.
With an M. With an M.
Okay.
M.
Put this closer to your mouth so I can hear
I
better.
did just come from the dentist, also,
Oh,
so that's
sorry.
probably not open a whole lot.
I can't hear
Can you
either.
give me that number again, sir, please?
It's 1.5 million kilowatt hours.
Thank you.
So what you have in front of you is a report that has, some of our company information, some of the other projects we've done, some of our references that are included in that. And then the final page, there's a narrative in the front, but the final page is really the meat and potatoes of what you would be looking to save. We anticipate that in year one, we would save you about $105,000 for the year. That goes up a little bit each year based on the idea that Atlantic City utility rates will probably increase, and your rate will be staying the same. So there'll continue to be a separation in a positive fashion for the city. After 15 years, the savings to the city would be about $2.3 million, and These panels they're warranted for 25 years. They last 40 years. So the last 15 years, we actually give the array to the city, and there's no electric cost. You're not paying for it from us anymore, and that increases the savings over a 40-year span to over $12 million in electrical costs. The next step when we would look at doing something like this is to say, okay, we've identified the meters, we've identified the usage. Now we want to see if Atlantic City Electric will allow us to do a project like this, if the savings are adequate and the city wants to move forward. Again, there's no obligation on the city's part in any way, shape, or form. What we would do is get our electrical engineer. We would require someone from the city to give us a tour, as it were, of each of the buildings that we'll be affecting and take us into the Master Control Center. We have to get the meter numbers. We have to get the poles. And we will put together at no cost the interconnect application to Atlantic City Electric to see if they would say, you can connect to our grid with this project. That time frame takes about 6 to 8 weeks after we submit application. And again, we would pay for the application. We will do the application and submit it on behalf of you. You will have your name on the application. It is your application. We're just doing the work for you.
Can you back up one more time and tell me what the savings would be again? Like you were talking about the actual savings per year or per bill, or what was it again?
Year one, which would be the least savings, would be just over $100,000. On the sheet, I think it's $105,000.
Why? And again, I don't know, but what?
This is just the solar, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Not including the street lighting.
Gotcha. But the $100,000, as the years go on, goes up. You're saying?
It'll go up based on the fact that Atlantic City Electric's historically
their rate
rates
is going to go
have
up.
Increased, okay, and your rate is going to
Remain the
increase
same.
at a lesser amount.
Arbitrarily speaking, if Atlantic City's electric rate didn't go up, that it would stay at $100,000.
Yes.
So if we do this, Mr. Solicitor, don't we have to go out to bid?
Yes.
If in fact we have a company that's
It would
coming?
be competitive contracting.
We'd have to?
Well, what we have done,
Yes or no? I didn't hear an answer. Yes?
I
think we would.
We would?
We have in the
that is
past, for instance,
one-
unless there's something changed in the law that I'm not aware of. Anytime we did a solar project in the past, we did a competitive bid for it.
Okay.
What does that consist of, Regina? Okay.
It's very similar to the bid process, but you do it as competitive contracting so that you look at everything, not just the cost. You want to make sure that the company you have is, a sound company and all. It's just it's very similar to the bid process. It would look like the bid process to you, but there's we have to pass a resolution authorizing me to do a competitive contract, and there's a process where you score by points. It's basically what we're doing right now for the EMS service.
So let me just say this back to you so I understand. You're basically saying we would say we want to put out a request for proposal for a solar field of X amount of array or whatever, and put whatever the other things that we want in it, and then we put it out to the public, and then the public bids on it.
Right.
How
Because there's
would-
other companies. In municipal government, if there's another company that provides this,
Right.
they have to be given the opportunity to also bid the project.
How would they know what to bid had the first company not done the legwork though?
They would get the same, they would probably ask for the same information, or they would at least give you what they would give as a discount. We've done it. We've gone out to bid twice since I've been here for solar
Okay.
projects.
yeah, you would give them the bills that you gave us, and they would do the same work that we've done. Synergy has partnered up with a shared services group.
Okay.
All right, so this is another alternative to going out to a full-blown RFP. We are the winning vendor by bidding an RFP through a shared services group that can then sell to any municipality, school board, MUA, any government entity. It's through DCA. They're approved. They're an approved shared services vendor group. We bid, so it did go through advertisement. Other vendors were allowed to bid. We have the lowest bid, and basically you can piggyback on that bid.
It's a cooperative. We do that for other things too. I mean, I didn't know, I just have to
I'm
make
not,
sure.
I'm not real. Can you say that one more time? I'm
He's
slow,
saying a
guys, I'm
shared
sorry.
service. It's actually a cooperative, if I'm correct. It's like we have some cooperatives with Middlesex Regional School District, and we can purchase the service because Middlesex went out and did the bid already.
Oh, I got you.
So
So
I,
it's almost
he's
like a
now
state
saying
In
he's.
other words,
Yeah.
it's a way of going
It's an
around.
extent- like-
Well,
state
it's somebody
contract.
else did the bid. It's like a
Yeah.
state contract. Somebody else did the bid. We joined the
Okay.
cooperative, and then we can
If-
also use it. That's an option you have.
If we go the shared services route, we are fronting all expenses. If you put out an RFP, the winning vendor will reimburse you, but the city will front the expenses along the way. So, you're probably talking
Steve,
about
give us your
$100,000
last name so we don't get
$150,000.
confused here with Steve and Steve.
I'm sorry?
Last name?
What
Durst?
expenses?
Thank you.
Trumbo.
So,
When
so-
you, I'm
Go ahead.
sorry,
Go ahead,
Commissioner
Commissioner.
Pepitone, when you are referring to the expenses, at that point, do you mean the application fee that would be waived?
Yeah, you
Through-
will never, in dealing with us in our project, you will never lay out a dime at any point. All construction, all engineering, all design, all legwork, all application fees done by us. For some reason, the project doesn't get home, that's our tough luck. And we will provide, we'd like you to go shared services. We will provide references of the 7 schools. We've done that route in the last 2 years. Other references. I think, if your solicitor is comfortable with it, then so be it. But we'll give a full explanation of it and references. And the other thing it does is it basically will get a project lights on in 9 to 12 months. Typically, RFPs drag on for 2 to 3 years before somebody is finally, putting their shovel in the ground.
If you were to do your own, if the city was to do its own RFP, you would have to have your solicitor or a group put that RFP together. So I think what Steve was referring to is those costs would be out of your pocket up front. We've already done that. So if you join the shared services group, which is no cost to join, you can piggyback on what they've already done. They've already done that work. They've gone out to an RFP. They've written the RFP. And it's been advertised, through the legal papers. And they've, this is a way we've actually done the last 7 projects that we've done. We're under construction right now at Fairfield Municipal Building. We did the Pittsgrove Municipal Building in this fashion, and we've done a number of schools and through school boards in the same fashion as well.
Mr. Russell, is it okay if we have our solicitor get in touch with you and bounce this back and forth with you so that you bless it or nay?
I mean, I have no problem looking at it. I can't make
Yeah.
any determinations without the
understand.
board reviewing it, but you
I'm
can
at
communicate
a
with me.
point where we've heard this proposal, and we all, I think, realize that solar is going to be the way to go in the future. So if we're not going to go in this direction, and I'm not saying which way to go, how do we begin, or do you guys collectively feel that we should start to look into a way to gain solar power within the city? Am I making myself understood?
Presently, we do have we've had
I
two
can't hear
solar,
him.
we've had 2 solar projects, or
Right.
bidding processes. One was done down at the sewer plant, and I'm thinking that
Were you
Marcy.
involved in the one with the sewer
We
plant?
were the winning bid.
Okay.
Right, that one we did as a competitive contract. We went out to bid. We received all the bids. The second one, we did pay a professional to prepare it. It was to put solar panels on top of the 15th Street building.
Okay.
And after their bids were received, they were reviewed, and it was going to cost the city money, so it was decided not to do it at that time.
We're hearing.
And we
it's not
had
gonna
a
cost
solar
us money.
consultant look at the bids,
Okay.
that it was not advantageous. Now, I know some law with solar energy has changed, and I'm not up to date on it. I think recently there has been some changes in the law, so I can't answer for that.
So let me ask this question now to you guys. The presentation that you're making is based on shared service. Yes?
Well, it's the hope that you will go shared services.
Okay.
We're not afraid to bid an RFP. Okay?
What I'm saying is if we go to an RFP, does your offer then change to us?
Well, we're not going to front the expense. We're not allowed to. because we can't
We would need
presume-
someone to write the bid.
Oh,
We
I was
can't
going to say.
presume we'll be the winning bidder. Okay?
We paid a consultant the last time to
We
write
would
the
do
bid.
all the work. Instead
much-
of them doing the work, we would do it.
Arbitrarily speaking, what would something like that cost?
I don't want to recall, I want to say it was in the thousands, but I can't remember whether it was like 8 or something like that. I'd have to look into it and get back to you.
I think you're looking at $100,000 to $150,000.
To write the bid?
No.
Pardon me?
To
To
lay-
write the
No.
bid?
Write the bid, ongoing legal expenses,
Well, that-
feasibility studies, engineering.
But
There's-
once
there's
the
an
bid is
amalgam.
written, all the contractors assume all the cost. That's how we've seen it before.
Well, you make that a condition of the bid.
Right, that's how we've
But
seen
you're
it before, it's
fronting
just
it
the
and
actual
then
bid.
getting reimbursed. If
Well,
we
no,
go shared
just
services,
the actual
we're
bid
fronting
we
it.
front. The rest of it is on the contractor. If you're going to bid, you assume those costs.
Okay.
Good.
No, but I wonder, are we going to move somewhere on this eventually? Okay.
Not tonight, I don't think.
I'm not saying, I'm
Steve,
just
you have
saying-
anything else to say?
Until I get a hold of my kids tonight. What we're doing now is, in essence, on a handshake, we're doing a feasibility study. We've done a lot of work. We see great possibilities. Coupled with the street lighting, we think the savings in aggregate this city are about $350,000 a year, with no attention being paid to the schools or the school board, just the city. So the solar, Steve went over that component. The street lighting is a very complex amalgam of agencies. We've got a grip on it, and we think it's very viable. So we're very willing to, given the history we have in the city, we're very willing to front the monies and go ahead on that basis. We will supply Mr. Russell with our solicitor and with information, and if he's comfortable with it and passes that on to you, then you'll consider it. In the
Sounds
meanwhile,
good.
we're just trying to make progress.
And you're
Sounds good.
Thank you.
You're saying with the streetlights, the average savings is going to be
About $240,000 a year.
240,000 with the streetlights and the electric?
No, and the electric is brings you up to about 350, 345.
Marcy, how many pennies is that? 154,000.
It's 1
Okay,
cent,
thank you.
2 cents.
We've also
So it's
identified
2 pennies, yeah.
a site and alternate sites. So we're well along.
Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thanks.
Thank you, Steve and Steve. Anyone else?
I wanted to say, there is a gentleman, I think he's a consultant with the BPU, Gary Finger, and he does come down to municipalities, and he does, brief you on what's available.
For
And
free?
Yeah, for free.
Works for the state.
And I was present doing one of his presentations in another town, and I think the commissioners found it to be very helpful. Maybe we could invite him to come to Millville, and
Excellent.
he could come here to work session. I think the Vice Mayor is familiar with him.
Something we can schedule for the future. Does that go with you, Commissioner?
No, I'm excited. I know what we're looking at, and I don't care how we do it, but I want to just.
You wanna get it done.
You want to maximize, the, bang for the buck with it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Madam Clerk, next presentation.
All right, we have a presentation by David Spector on behalf of Garden State Relief. Mr. Spector.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. My name's Dr. Robert Toddernair. I'm not Dave Spector. He's right there. I'm speaking on behalf of the group, or starting this presentation. I'm a double board certified anesthesiologist and pain management doctor. One of the co-founders of a company called Garden State Relief. As a pain management doctor, I see pain patients every day. I do injections, I write scripts, I write opioid scripts, which is being vilified these days. Recently, about 2 to 3 years ago, our practice began writing medical marijuana. As a provider that was recommending marijuana, I could only see benefits. Every day we write these recommendations. We have patients come back. We get the feedback. I've recommended over 400 patients, and I think about 4 patients haven't gotten along with the program, haven't gotten benefit. We've seen reductions in opioids, benzodiazepines, sleeping medicines, muscle relaxers, NSAIDs. It's been a very successful program. Better quality of life for seniors, all walks of life. Our veterans are getting a ton of relief with this medicine. And being a doctor that sees these patients and hears their their complaints and the good and the bad of the program that we have currently, I thought maybe we could do this better. Provide medicinal grade, pharmaceutical grade marijuana that is with less side effects and better efficacy for our patients. We've done the research in our practice. We're collecting data right now to eventually publish a study on reduction in opioid, quality of life, sleep patterns, all these different things we're compiling data for. So using this as medicine in my practice has been a godsend for our patients. It's just been such a nice thing to see patients actually sleeping, not taking the stuff that can kill them. To date, there's not been one reported death from medicinal marijuana. To counter that, the entirety of the Vietnam War dies every year from opioid overdose, street and prescription. So to provide better access to New Jersey patients and at a better quality with less side effects, that's the goal in forming this company. We've since starting this endeavor about a year ago, we've compiled a whole team of New Jerseyans to run this program. We've even hired a Harvard-trained doctor to run our medical board, who will help us select better strains with, once again, better quality and less side effects for our patients. We have a retired Superior Court judge, Albert Garofolo. He is one of the owners, and he's going to head up our compliance, correct? We have a disabled Marine, a retired Pennsauken police officer, and he actually runs the security for the nuclear power plant. He will head our security. Our company is comprised of New Jerseyans that want betterment for New Jersey. We're not some venture capitalist firm that's coming in and saying, we just want this for the money. I want this as a doctor to provide better medicine for our patients and job opportunities for New Jerseyans. We're all born and bred here. This is a group of compassionate people that care about our town, our cities. We're from South Jersey. This is part of us. I remember doing one of our field trips was the Wheaton Glass Factory. Very, very good memories there. So, we are South Jersey. We're excited to be here, and we want to get this thing running. We want to do different than what these other companies are doing. It's not fly-by-night, just jump into this city and that state and start this thing up. We want to build it from the ground up with New Jerseyans and to get better access for our patients. You want to take over the operation? And this is Stephanie Thomas, and she'll introduce what she does first.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Thomas. I'm working with Garden State Relief on a lot of the planning and real estate and operational concerns for what we're trying to do here in Millville. What we want to do is set up a medical marijuana cultivation and processing facility. We would cultivate the plants, do extractions on part of the harvest to make more medicinal products like oils, pills, tinctures, topicals, things that are easier for people to ingest that cannot actually smoke the product. Anything that's allowed in the state of New Jersey per regulations for medical patients. We would do all this in a facility, an enclosed facility in Millville. All of the products would be distributed to retail stores called dispensaries throughout the state. We would not include a retail component in our development. What other kinds of, we will have extensive security per regulations and over and above the regulations. We've toured a lot of these facilities in other states. I've worked with these kinds of operators in 15 states, but I was born and raised in New Jersey, so I'm glad to see it come back here finally. And Millville holds a special place in my heart. Even though I was not born and raised here, I've literally spent 200 nights here over the last 10 years enjoying the motorsports park. My husband enjoying it a little bit more than me. But yes, we've been down here to see the rebirth of this town, and it really has been incredible over the last 10 or so years to see what's happening. We're excited to be a part of that.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Good evening, Commissioners. Mr. Mayor, my name is Steve Shane. I'm the attorney for Garden State Relief, and I'm with the Hoban Law Group, and we're just attorneys who handle legalized marijuana and industrial hemp, and we represent people everywhere in the country, in fact, across the globe, who grow, process, sell, transport legalized marijuana. So I want to be here to give you any information you might want about compliance or any issues that you may have. Communities often have great concerns about bringing a marijuana-related business into their community, and sometimes they're worried about security, and sometimes they're worried about the burden that might be on roads and trucks coming through, and sometimes they're worried about burdens that might be on the electrical grid, and sometimes they're worried about, is it a group that they can manage? Is it a group that's compliant? Is it a group that's transparent? So I'm more than happy to give you kind of an overview of what we're going to do, or I could field questions or concerns you might have. And just to give you a better sense of what we're doing to, at the very least, we'd like to get a letter of support from our efforts, what we're trying to do here. At the very most, we'd like to carry the flag. We'd like to carry the flag of Millville and perhaps get exclusivity and be the one person you give a letter of recommendation to. So let me talk for just a minute or so. This is a very interesting group because presently there is actually no round out for applications. What happens in legalized marijuana is it's like a starter's pistol. The state says, okay, go. Applications are out. You have 30 days. This group has been working for a year, carefully selecting the right group, selecting the right people to try and build it organically. Slow and steady wins the race. That's the motto of Garden State Relief. Also, family, profitability, and health and wellness. That's what we're trying to do. So we're looking to partner with the community to see that we can serve, we can do the best for. With that, are there any specific questions that we can field for you today?
Nope, we're good, Steve, thank you.
I get paid by the minute, so really, are there no questions that we can field
How
for you?
much profit would you guys make by opening a facility?
One more time?
Profit.
What profit we make in terms of percentage or in terms of numbers? It really depends on the specifics of what we do. The key to legalized marijuana is the square foot of grow, and we looked at a site today that has existing 27,000 square feet. Now, marijuana is really competitive. Everybody seems to think it's a get-rich-quick scheme. It is absolutely not. And a year in legalized marijuana is like 7 years in every other industry. So the factors that we'll be driving would be how many square feet we can cultivate, what the price per pound wholesale of marijuana is here in New Jersey, because our product, while it won't be sold in the streets of Millville or anywhere throughout this county, it will go to other dispensaries across New Jersey, what they're willing to pay. So we really can't tell you right now exactly what our numbers would be in profit.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, this is our first presentation. I just find it interesting.
Excuse me?
I said this is our first presentation, and I find it interesting to see what the profit margin is going to be for the actual producers as well as how it's going to benefit the city.
Can we turn it around for a second? Ideally, what would you want from us? How can we best serve Millville?
I like that.
What?
I said I like that question. I mean, we have to think it over, but I mean, I'm glad to see that you're looking at it from that perspective.
We've seen across our country, every community is different. We have represented businesses in Alaska and Colorado and California and Oregon. We're doing stuff in Oklahoma, and every community is different, and every community's needs are different. And part of the partnership, other than making people well, adding to the revenue and the tax base, is serving the community. So I don't know how we got out of it, but we learned somehow the mayor seems to be a supporter of baseball. Is that true?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's
So
my trout country.
how can we best serve this community? What can we best do? Is it the Little League? We want to know how to make this even better.
Thank you.
Are you looking for a building that already exists, or are you looking to build a new building? And how many acres are you looking for, and how much square footage?
Right. Ideally, we'd like to start out with an existing building that we would retrofit for cultivation purposes, just because the state sets a deadline. Once you do get the license, you've got a year to be up and running. So ground-up construction takes a little bit longer time than something existing in retrofit. Ideally, we'd like to retrofit. Starting square footage, we'd like to be in the 50,000 square foot range. We'd start lower than that, though, and scale up both the interior fit out and if we had to add additional buildings. You'd scale that in conjunction with the patient enrollment in the state. Because there are a limited number of producers, we can kind of gauge how much each patient is purchasing on average. And spread that over the number of producers. You've got your pro rata share of production. We don't need to be a huge facility right now. We want to have the capability to do that in the future, but it does not have to be a massive facility now. We could go with 30,000 square feet to start and scale up from there. I think our top square footage that we're thinking about right now would probably be about 100,000 square feet. But even if we did not have that building set, if we walked into a 100,000 square foot building today, we would not fit out the entire space. We'd keep some of it vacant for eventual fit out.
I hadn't thought about this type of project, but would this be considered more of an industrial use than an agricultural one? It sounds like you're processing and doing things like that, and it's indoors.
Yeah, the entire facility would be an indoor agricultural operation, but for planning purposes, you would consider it an industrial kind of use.
I mean, it's
Nobody
like a
would
plant.
see the
Really
plant.
is what it is. It's a plant.
Yeah, it's a factory that grows plants and then processes the harvest.
And then how's
So-
the product packaged, and would it be shipped by train, by rail, by tractor trailer?
No, actually, the products, when it comes down to it, the products themselves are pretty small. They're going to be packaged on site for retail sale, so individual retail units with child safety packaging, labeling, testing, all of that. Then they get distributed to the dispensaries throughout the state. Right now, we envision using Sprinter vans.
So not even tractor trailers?
Never. I don't think there will ever be a time that we'll use
Well,
tractor
maybe to
trailers.
get your product, you might need tractor trailers.
No, we're actually going to be growing the plants in the facility and then doing the extraction or processing on site, packaging, and then distributing to retail locations. So it would be individually packaged products in cases that go and get distributed to retailers throughout the state. But the products themselves, I mean, you can fit a whole bunch in one box, and one Sprinter van will be able to supply a few stores on one trip.
The very strict rules about the transportation of legalized marijuana. New Jersey's been very clear on the regulations. So let's talk a moment about the processing and what we do. We be both growing and processing it, and the question becomes what products are presently allowed in New Jersey. So there's presently 4 delivery systems of legalized marijuana. One's called flower, which is the more traditional kind, but a more popular kind's called vape, in which case it doesn't involve combustion, but instead the essence is extracted out into an oil that's used in arguably a healthier pen, which just kind of steams it. And New Jersey presently allows infused products of lotions and lozenges. So that would happen. On the more of the, so that's growing and processing. The transportation, as Stephanie said, is in rather small amounts. So we envision unmarked vehicles, which again, there's not a lot to be done. You're barred in New Jersey from advertising your business, whether it's an agro or somebody else's dispensary. So it could be a very neutral thing. Another thing to think about, though, is in terms of the process of cultivation. Again, every year in marijuana is like 7 years in every other industry. So originally, interesting that we had the solar guys before us. Our original plan was to try and use solar energy, but a more efficient and greener way to grow is called a greenhouse. And some places like California, although I don't think New Jersey is going to allow doing that, allows outdoor grows. But presently we met a secure indoor, maybe with a glass roof if Jersey allows it, which would be a greener way of doing it. But the big concern is not overburdening the community in terms of with trucks transporting product or demands on energy or anything else like that.
So I think their request is that we send a letter to the state stating that we endorse this company, as we've done in the past. We've done that, right, Jeannie? We've done it in the past, and I don't think
For other
if any
companies.
commissioner has another comment. We've done that for several other companies that have come up here, and I'm okay with that. If any other commissioners has something to say about it, go ahead. If not, we will definitely do that.
I do have a couple questions. I'd like to hear more about your current models. Do you have any current models going on?
With financial models?
Yes.
We don't have frankly, we weren't exactly sure how in-depth the process was and how much time. So can we give you the financial models maybe within time? Because we view this as an ongoing process. we clearly want your endorsement, perhaps your exclusive endorsement, but we want to know how we can best serve you. So maybe within a week, we give them financial models and take a look at that. Would that be satisfactory?
Sounds good.
Okay. Is there any other information we can provide? Because
Let me ask you, let me just digress a little bit back
Sure.
to compliance, because that's your area, right?
Yes.
Okay. Have you had any major issues? I understand some other states have had some problems with compliance.
Has New Jersey had any major issues?
Yeah.
Not presently. Other states have had various issues. So the issues that typically can affect a state are probably not ones that would normally come to mind. So what happened, the worst issue we've seen is in Colorado, where my firm is based.
That's exactly
There was something
where.
called looping, where people were going repeatedly to dispensaries and buying more of their allotment. We're not operating a dispensary, so it's not a concern. A second issue, too, is frankly a security issue in terms of, I guess that's not the right word, in terms of the pesticides used in the product. And certain people have been insecure or used poor pesticides in making sure that the product grew properly. And that's been a concern. But again, that wasn't here in New Jersey. That took place in Oregon over a strain called Blue Magoo. Something else is going on. Any other issues?
Diversion
There's an issue
in
too.
Oregon.
There's an issue too with banking, which is in terms of cash management, and there's an issue too of how that works correctly too. But that's more of an operational issue, and there was an issue with Vireo where they were moving product between the states. But that's an issue that comes with big marijuana. We live in an area where frankly, standalones are not quite as common as we'd like. We're big, multi-state, moving between the states. We see that down the road in Vineland, Columbia Care, which comes out of Goldman Sachs, is kind of been involved in here, but they have facilities across the country. They sort of trying to dominate the market, and that provides certain benefits, but also provides certain negatives. And one of the negatives is you've got to deal with their infrastructure. And what we're proposing here, it would be a standalone, really looking to partner with Millville and what would make you most comfortable, because we're not looking to build a national brand. We're looking to just stay here.
Would you be to stay as competitive as the other ones?
Excuse me?
Would you be able to stay as competitive as compared to a bigger operation?
Yes, perhaps more competitive. It really depends what you want to do. So some people are basically building their product to be sold, meaning the grow, because they want a big brand like from, I guess, Big Pharma, Big Tobacco, or dietary supplement company to purchase them. And that's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to build something that's permanent and employ people here. One of the
And speaking of
concerns with legalized marijuana is
employment, that's
consolidation.
where I wanted to go next. Employment. Let's talk about that a little further down the line.
Sure.
What since we're talking about cultivation and more of an industry-based business here, you're not doing any retail,
Zero.
right? There's no retail. So what would you talk about? How many people would you employ in this process?
We envision for a 50,000 square foot facility, we'd probably start with 50 full-time or full-time equivalent employees, starting salaries of minimum at $15, and that would be for the lowest level employee coming in, getting on the job training. Salaries are scaled up for managers and scientific kinds of positions. And as our production capacity increases, we would increase the number of employees. There isn't any specific training or credentialing that's required for most of the jobs, other than a high school diploma and a willingness to work and learn on the job.
And would they be tested for marijuana?
That would depend on state law.
We'll be more specifically
Drug
tested for what in
testing.
marijuana?
And your analysis?
Okay, so this is where it gets a little lawyerly. There is no prohibition presently in America to test anybody for legalized marijuana. You can test anybody and you can terminate. You have no right, except in Colorado apparently. In Colorado they have a separate state statute about that. So you can't. The problem is that if there can be people who are treating for marijuana. Marijuana's got a strained property to it, and it stays in your system for a very long period of time. So if somebody is unwell and they're perhaps treating on a Saturday for whatever their ailment may be, they could be tested on a Wednesday and still have a relatively high THC system, THC MGs in their system. So there's a distinction between the amount of THC in your system and impairment.
Are you asking more that, would they do backgrounds, checks on people?
Oh, sure,
before
there'll be
they hire?
background checks on everybody as required by state law. The state's got very rigorous standards. It's not specific to Millville, but the state has very rigorous standards of who can work in a marijuana-related business, which would be a grow, processor, what we're trying to do. And they've got to have absolutely clean records. They can't have felonies, can't have anything like that, too. And the state's has very strict rules, which I'd be more than happy to talk about in terms of if there's any issue with a product. For example, if something left and it was open and it was just torn a little bit, it has to be destroyed. Current New Jersey statute actually has one thing where you can opt to have the police come in and watch you destroy the product. Because New Jersey has a wonderful statewide system for making it very secure and very organized. And then there's very strict rules about how the product is stored too, in terms of the quality, like a vault-like quality. It looks to DEA regulations and stuff in terms of the thickness of the walls and stuff like that too.
I just want to share with you guys, when I went to the League of Municipalities, I went to a presentation on marijuana and how municipalities are looking at it. And they said, although New Jersey's moving very slow, they're doing it intentionally because they want to make sure they get it right. So they're putting all the bells and whistles in the sense of protection for the public, et cetera.
To provide a brief context as well to the Commission as well as to our presenters, our Planning Board has received presentations in the form of informal concept reviews where they had actually concentrated on very in-depth analysis of the security, even how it pertains to the engineering department, including wastewater treatments. So there is a lot of detail that definitely goes into this plan. We've seen it in detail at the Planning Board. At this point, in compliance with granting the letter, as the mayor had said, that's a request that could be honored. It has been honored in the past. So at that stage, if that's what the decision is to be rendered this evening is the issue of the letter, then at that point, I have no further questions.
Yeah, no, I have no
No
problem.
problems. Thank you, Commissioner. Great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
For all those folks, make sure you stop and eat in Millville now. All right, just walk right down the street, several nice restaurants.
How good is sushi?
Sushi, all the way down to the end. About 5 blocks. I can't say the name of the restaurant because I don't want to, But 5 blocks will be on the east side of the street. Can't say the name.
You want to get a shameless plug?
Can't say the name, Mike.
I was in front of you a couple of times.
I know. That's why I'm not saying the name.
You hanging out?
Yeah.
Like yesterday, you guys pointed to the bench, and gosh, I have some.
We lost our.
I have left under discussion for Mary Ann.
Hey, good to see you. Take care.
Oh, you want to do it right now?
Well, we can wait for the discussion. It's just 7
Okay.
minutes.
Madam Clerk, anything else?
No, Mayor, that's it.
All right. Do we have any review changes to the agenda?
There were no changes to the agenda. I apologize. That was out of order.
All right, we now open up public comment on agenda items only. Anyone that would like to address an issue on the agenda, please step up to your mic, state your name and your concerns, and limit your comments to 5 minutes, please. Seeing no one, I close the public comment on the agenda items only. Old business, please.
There's no old business, Mayor.
Discussions of commissioners. Commissioner Cooper?
Not at this time, Mayor.
Commissioner Pepitone?
Nothing now, Mayor.
Commissioner Udalvis?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through the discussion of commissioners, I ask that the commission now refer to work session item 1 titled 2018 Millville Development Corporation's Annual Report Summary by Mary Ann Lodes, MDC Executive Director, providing an in-depth explanation of the economic investment successes and growth of the Glasstown Arts District as described through the annual report. I invite and welcome Mary Ann Lodes of Millville Development Corporation to present this item to the commission.
Thank you very much for the invitation, and good evening. I'm Mary Ann Lodes, Executive Director of Millville Development Corporation, better known as the Glasstown Arts District. 2018 was a complex year for us, but in the end, the result was very hopeful and a lot of progress going forward. And I've left copies of the report with everyone here, so I'm certainly not going to read it to you, and you can digest it on your own to see exactly what the Millville Development Corporation does in 2018 and beyond. And I hope you will go through that and see the different projects we're involved with. We have a very active board of directors led by our chairman, Bob Connor of Mintz Insurance, along with others that have been dedicated for several years, and those that join us as new members within the last few years. I'd like to draw your attention, though, mostly to the investments, which are listed on the next to last page and the final page. There were quite a few buildings that were bought this past year, and the market, it's a buying season. We saw this in the early days of the Arts District, where in about 2001, 2002, and 2003, buildings were being bought at a very low price, and most of them being renovated. After another year or two went by, 2005, 2006, all the way through 2008, before the recession really hit us, buildings had tripled, quadrupled, and even more for some in prices. Well, prices are back down into, I won't say rock bottom, but quite good deals for an investor that wants to put some money into it. So we had, for a long time, called a few of the buildings our white elephants because they were large buildings, not easy for, let's say, an entrepreneur to just open an 800 square foot facility, a retail business or whatever. So those have all been purchased. One, the largest one, which was purchased actually at the end of 2017, the FAST building, the former FAST building, has had a lot of renovations inside. And I recently contacted the owner of that. He's from California. And to see how he's going to finish the exterior and so forth. So I'm waiting to hear back from him. The building that's directly across from the Riverfront Renaissance Center, which is probably known to many of you as the former Riley building, the attorney's offices, that has been totally rehabbed. 6 beautiful apartments on the 2nd and 3rd floor, 1-bedroom apartments and a studio, ready to rent, and retail space or an office space on the ground floor that is ready to finish to suit the tenant. So we're actively looking for a tenant for that property to help the owner out. Of course, he's looking as well. The old Bank of America, that it was for many years at the corner of High and Sassafras, was more recently purchased by the fella who owns the former FAST building, the fella from California. His ideas for that will not materialize until he's finished with the FAST building, and which I can certainly understand. And that includes all the parking that's behind those buildings. All of that parking goes with the bank building.
What did that go for? Do you know?
I do. It's in the report. It's here someplace. Bank, $130. It had been bought at auction for less than that previously, because the bank just divested all over the country of a lot of branches, and that one being a costly building, and so they picked it up. Somebody made a quick profit, and then that was it.
Marianne, can I stop you for a second?
Sure.
Does he have a timetable on the FAST building as to when he's going to complete that?
And that's why I reached out to him like last week, and I'm waiting for a response. He's usually responsive. He may be away or something.
Okay.
So as soon as I know, I will let
Thank
you know, because I'd like to know that too.
Yes.
But I mean, he was redoing all of the apartments.
Yes.
So and
Okay.
and then the retail commercial space downstairs.
Okay.
And then Bruni's Burgers, very successful little business in town. He was recently able to buy the building because he was renting it. He lives in the building on the 2nd floor. And so I love seeing a success like that in the food industry because it's hard to turn an eatery into a profit-making business. So he's done a great job with that. So we have a few places that we're targeting this year to try to get them moving, and one is the building that's right on the corner here. It was the Peking Tokyo for so long. Jenny Liu still owns it from South 2nd Street. So we're going to try to get together with her and see, you know, what she's looking for. I think she'd rather have a tenant than to sell it. And then the other one has been vacant for so long, and it's on Sassafras. Is we still call it the Oliver Twist building, but it's such a nice building. And when it was sold to the last owner, it went for a lot of money, and it's hard to figure out how you're going to recoup, you know, a big price tag building in a restaurant.
Marianne, are there apartments on top of Peking, Tokyo?
You know, I've never been there, but I remember when it was a dining room, when it was a Holly House.
Well, there used to be an upstairs dining room.
Just
That's
no
right.
apartments that I'm aware of.
No, I don't think so. Yeah.
You're dating yourself.
I'm sorry.
Holly.
Holly, well, I don't even know when they burned or closed or whatever, but thanks, Mayor. That was that was special.
So am I, so maybe that'll make you feel better.
Well, I had a big birthday this month.
Well, happy birthday.
Or last month. Thank you. So we've had a lot of renovations go on, and I think that's very exciting. We had the Sherwood Forest and De Palma building, which are the most beautiful buildings on the street. You know, just upgrade their facade, and it's just more glowing and beautiful than always. And the buildings I mentioned are undergoing these things. And we're very fortunate we received a facade grant from the CDBG money, and we're going to apply again this month for the next fiscal year. And we're just giving those out now. Some of the recipients will be El Guacamole Restaurant, because they had some damage during a storm outside, so that'll correct that. The building that has Bowman Medical needs some repair and some cosmetic work done to it. And I've also given the application to some other building property owners or tenants. It can be either one, the owner or the tenant. We also have another sale in the pipeline, so I can't say what it is, but it was a surprise to me, and it should be a good thing. And then we're expecting good public investment from the Improvement Authority with the corner of High and Broad Street. And I think that will really enhance everything that we're doing to make it more attractive and welcome. Something I had mentioned to Commissioner Cooper from his department was the condition of the fountain on the plaza. And, you know, it's in total disrepair, and it has been for a while. And I had been doing some research on what could be there in place of it, and I found some examples of other plazas in other downtowns. And what they did, like in the center of one, was put a large chessboard or checkerboard just out of pavers, you know, or concrete slabs of the different colors, the contrast. And that would be a perfect footprint in that square that the fountain was in. I think the, you know, removal of the fountain could be, is my mind saying it could be done probably by city employees, and would not be a very costly venture. And I thought it would be very attractive. It could also serve then, if you have live music out on Plaza, which we often do, well, that's the bandstand all of a sudden. It's not raised. It's not a danger. You're going to have less skateboards jumping on and off of it. And it was just an idea that I brought forth. So since I have your attention, I decided to bring it forth again.
We'll
I hope you will consider that.
We will talk more about that.
Okay, good. And just the final dollars and cents for 2018, just over $900,000 of private money went into the purchasing and renovations, and $150,000 this past year from the Improvement Authority to purchase land and building. So total investment in 18 years of public and private is $51.5 million. And that's nothing to sneeze at. Any questions of me?
No, nice job.
Thank you. Don't forget Third Fridays, people. Come on out.
Okay.
Mary Ann, kudos to you and Commissioner Udalvis, because I don't think I've ever heard a report of downtown High Street. So thank you very much, and I'm glad that we're live, because a lot of people can see or can hear and see what's going on High Street, and it's all positive. So thank you.
Thank you very much. I encourage people to like us on Facebook at Millville Glasstown Arts District, and we have 2,600 likes, and I'm always putting information out there. If you don't want to miss out, like us.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I would also like to comment that it has been a goal of the Commission to revitalize our efforts in partnering with our community organizations, specifically to concentrate efforts in economic development for the existing unoccupied commercial spaces in the Arts District. And I would also like to extend my gratitude to Marianne for also providing a report not only of all of the economic development, but also the facade improvements through CDBG. It's great feedback. Thank you. And with the conclusion of the report, Mr. Mayor, progress.
Thank you. Vice Mayor?
Nothing at this time. How about you?
I have nothing either. New business, please, Madam Clerk.
Okay, there is no new business, Mayor.
All right, we've now reached the public comment portion of our meeting. Anyone that would like to address this commission, please go to the podium, state your name and address your concerns, and please limit your comments to 5 minutes, please.
Good evening, Commission. Kirk Hewitt, Millville. Came up today due to the presentation you had for the solar field. Seems like this presentation was like a rerun of the initial one. There's a couple major things that these folks, when there's a presentation, they hit and they run. They never stand around to listen to questions. Somebody has to pay for the solar panels. It's just like a residential install. You're either going to buy those, which that's where you make money, because you get to sell everything back to Atlantic City Electric, or you're going to lease them. They haven't said a word yet in the two presentations of how much the lease will be. Now, I didn't expect it the first time because they asked for the information that they brought to you and gave to you. Now, with that information, they could touch base real quick on what it would take to put solar here. In turn, they can give you 5, the figure for the lease, or any solar company, commercial or residential, is going to offer a lease price at a minimum of 15 years. They said 20, but they didn't say the word lease, if you think back to when they was talking. So they said 20, that's what your lease would be, but they didn't offer to give you a buy price. Mr. Durst and Synergy Incorporated, Mr. Mayor, the last commission, you guys had some issues with that, and it's still ongoing. With a little bit of review and looking, you'll find that the solar field, which is operating, and operating fine, at the sewer plant, is costing the city money because you are selling electric kilowatt hours back to Atlantic City Electric for less than the city is now paying with their increases, because they presented a contract to you that was a solid contract. Nothing went up during the years or down during the years like they started to allude to here tonight. You were locked in at a dollar price per kilowatt, a penny price per kilowatt. And that contract was signed by the last commission, and it was a mistake. It was found out it was a mistake. And you guys started looking into it. But then I think that if you look into this, because it needs to be studied, because it was put out, really, it's a great thing. Right, Mr. Peptone?
No, I'm listening to what
But
you're saying.
Joe, let him finish.
You'll find out that there was a lawsuit brought against the city by the company with the solar panels because you were trying to figure out the way that the contract was worded when the money loss was found, and there was a lawsuit brought against the city. But then everything just stayed the same, and the lawsuit was dropped. Did you take notice to how they might have started to get defensive when the question was posed about RFPs and about, well, how about if we think about having somebody else? All these big solar companies that are reputable, not just somebody that only works in Millville and Fairfield Township, because that's it. That's what they're made. That's what they are. That's what this company is that left here. They don't have reaches anywhere. Any company's going to come in here and do exactly what they did. They're not going to charge you, especially if you do a lease. They're not going to charge. That was well, we've already gone this far, and we're going to absorb the upfront fees. Every solar company is going to do that. It's big. It's the world. It's the future. I'm just asking, look into what you have now with the solar array at the sewer plant. Look at how much you're paying for electricity compared to what that, if it was contracted correctly and adjusted every year, that the city would be saving instead of spending just for that little field. And consider it. And maybe, make some phone calls. Man, you could probably get 15 solar companies in this place if you guys are looking to do this solar. The city buildings, they don't even talk about the lights. Because when you start talking about the lights, Atlantic City is going to send their people in. They're going to look at all these lights that they're old, they're using juice, they're electric killers. And they're going to just start putting up new bright ones, like that flashing light for that fiber optic shot spotter deal that was here. Atlantic City's going to come in, they're going to do that. Because if they don't do that, you're going to force them legally as a commission to make their light, they're not your lights, their lights, energy efficient. That's costing the city money. Just take a little bit deeper dive, especially with the solar that's already here in the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Kurt. Anyone else that would like to address the commission?
Good evening, Commissioners, City Clerk. Don't use the microphone. Mr. Solicitor. My name is Phil Van Emden. I've been involved with the Levoy Theater, I think, about 10 years now. And I'd just like to address two of the resolutions that are pending today.
Can you talk closer to the mic? Phil?
Yes,
Thank
sorry.
you, Phil.
Okay. 25 years ago, the city of Millville, in an attempt to revitalize its downtown, established an arts district. Mary Ann Lodes can tell you more about that, but we all know what we have today. The investment included, among other things, cleaning up the waterfront, paving sidewalks, adding decorative lighting, supporting an infusion of the arts, related businesses. Over the years, there have been a number of studies commissioned by the city to guide them in this matter. Every one of these commissions came to the same conclusion that at some point, the theater, the Levoy Theater that had stood vacant for 40 years, was really a linchpin, a keystone to making something happen in downtown. So the analysis of the structures were made and the recommendation was made. The Levoy Theater was originally a 1908 structure, and in 1912 it was expanded, in 1927 expanded again to the size that it is approximately today. In 2008, a new group of people accepted the task of revitalizing the theater. Construction didn't start right away. Between 2009 and 2010, there was this extended period of time during which an investigation was made into how to finance this project and what to build. You know, do you just fix the old building? Do you change the building? There were a lot of questions to be asked. In the end, the financing plan was considered what we would call a new market tax credit plan, according to the IRS. The city was represented by council and the economic development by economic development employees who advised the commission and guided their involvement. The so-called tax credit plan was considered complex by most standards, and considerable documentation was produced to effectuate the financing. In essence, the plan worked as follows. And it's always been convoluted, and it's always been complex. I've spent 10 years trying to understand this, and I'm really close to understanding it now. Really close. That's a joke. You know, he's supposed to.
You saw that we smiled, right?
Millville, desiring to develop a theater, agreed to raise funds to participate in an $8.6 million reconstruction plan, headed up by a 501c3 nonprofit known as the Levoy Theater Preservation Society, Inc. It was the intent of Millville to donate or grant their initial contribution toward the rebuilding of the theater and to have the theater borrow the balance from a bank. The project was considered a public benefit, and the available funds were almost exclusively from sources other than local taxes. Primarily, the funds were from the urban enterprise zone. And as we know, that's sales tax from the retail stores near the mall area, in most part. And the CCIA, which is the Cumberland County Improvement Authority, tipping fees. And also the GMF, Grove Millville Fund. There was political opposition to the theater project and to the use of the UEZ and the CCIA funding. You got to remember, I'll turn back the clock to 2008, 2009. We just started to slide into what we didn't know at the time was going to be a modern-day depression. 2008, pretty much January 2008, things stopped. All real estate stopped. People started feeling insecure. Spending stopped. And we didn't realize that we were hoping that by 2009 it would be over. By 2010 it would be over. But we ended up with a situation that month after month, year after year, the decline just didn't stop. And as so many of us that have been in this town for a long time know, Millville's the first to, or Cumberland County is the first to slide down in a recession and the last to come up. I'm hopeful that we're on the way up from this last recession. I think we are. In any case, the state of New Jersey rescinded. Ironically, 3 days after the project was allocated, 3 days after the UEZ money was allocated to this project, the state rescinded the city's ability to receive UEZ funding and snapped back all the funds that had not been dedicated. So in any case, then we ended up with a project that was funded by the UEZ, the CCIA, and the GMF. Total contributions were $5 million. These were granted into the project. The grant went into the tax credit project by virtue of creating a loan. So the money was put together by the city to help construct this project. It was sent to New York, where J.P. Morgan Chase added $1.95 million to it to create a tax incentive. Now, it wasn't any benefit to us necessarily, but it was to the tax people. So then the $5 million plus the 1.95, the 6.95 total, got sent to Delaware, where a corporation was formed to loan the money back to the project that had originally granted it in the first place. So what we have here is a very, very complex tax program. The net result of which was that the Levoy Theater ended up getting constructed. We went through a tremendous amount of difficulty during the construction. We had a partial collapse of the building. A lot of things occurred that made it very difficult to finish, but for a lot of good reasons, with a lot of efforts from a lot of good people, the project completed. I'd like to report now that after 6 years of operation, we see approximately 40,000 people a year. We employ 7 people full-time. We have 7 people part-time. We are open 120 days a year for public events, and we have a tremendous impact on the community. We are moving forward with our grants. The city, the state of New Jersey does give us partial grant funding. We have a number of small businesses that help us, and we make a very large impact on the businesses downtown. One of the things that we have done recently is what's called exit the tax plan, and that's one of the reasons I'm here today. Exiting the tax plan requires
Mr. Van Emden, you have about a minute left.
All right, I'm going to go fast. The tax credit plan required a long and drawn-out process. Part of that process is at the end of the deal, the money that the city granted into the project, which then became a loan, ends up turning back into a grant. We're asking here for today that the original grant be reactivated as reestablished as a grant and forgiven as it was intended to be done. We're also asking for the city to consider extending the terms on the mortgage, which we still hold and owe to the city, the $1.6 million, to just spread it out long enough so that we have little leeway in making those payments, not stopping making payments, but making them in a position where, rather than giving cash assistance to the nonprofit that's doing such good work, at least we can easily afford the payment and take care of that without any trouble.
Thank you.
I have a lot more if you would like it, but you're welcome.
Thank you. Anyone else? I now close the public comment for this meeting. Madam Clerk.
Resolution? Okay. We have a resolution authorizing a closed session regarding the following matters. Potential land sale, 719 Orange Street, under contract negotiations. DRBA transfer of parcel of land to the city of Millville, under contract negotiations. And Field of Dreams, under contract negotiations.
Mr. Mayor, I move for the adoption of this resolution.
Second motion. Any comments? Roll call.
Commissioner Pepitone?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Parent?
Yes.
Commissioner Udalabis?
Yes.
Commissioner Cooper?
Yes.
Mayor Santiago?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Folks, we're not.